The iconic and knowledgeable John Garcia of Sports Illustrated, yes, the director of recruiting, is going to talk all things Michigan State recruiting from, well, what is the state of the Spartans recruiting class right now in 2023? And we get into a little bit of 2024 talk as well. Let's go.
Are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, Locked On Spartans Nation? How on earth are we all doing as we are just enjoying this bye week? You know, there's no hate in the air, no tension in the air as we sit here over the bye week ahead of a big game on October 29th. But hey, before we get to any other football talk, there's three groups of people I want to thank. The first one is I would like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. The second group is you, the wonderful listeners and viewers of Locked On Spartans. And the third group is actually just one man himself. That's John Garcia Jr. of Sports Illustrated, the director of recruiting. John, how on earth you been, man? It's been a while since we've chatted.
I'm doing well. Can't complain. I mean, this college football season has been unbelievable. A lot of drama. Of course, recruiting is tagging right along as usual. So, status quo for me, at least professionally, so can't complain.
There we go. And yeah, you know what? It has been a whirlwind for the college sport landscape, and also Michigan State too as well. Not necessarily for the good reason all along the way, although, hey, we are coming off a win. Let's not downplay that at all. But with that said, hey, 3-4 on the season. A lot of us fans have that beacon of light being the recruiting class for 2023 right now. Look, you're the expert in the room, so I'll stop babbling. John, just hit us. Please just tell us what's going on. How's the state of Michigan State recruiting? Is everything okay? Is everything going to be okay?
Look, I think the strength and optimism and the consistency of the summer was certainly a high point for this Michigan State class. Obviously, there has been a little bit of a slowdown since that point, crucial decommitment recently in Clay Wedden. But outside of that, I do think all things even, as this dust continues to settle, still a balanced and relatively strong class. I think the volume is certainly something to address, right? 13 verbal commitments at this point, although we know Mr. Transfer Portal is always going to be a factor with Michigan State and Mel Tucker. The high school grouping right now is very much a quality over quantity group. If you're on the fringe of the top 25 in any ranking with under 20 verbal commitments right now, you're recruiting at a pretty high clip. And Michigan State is still very much on the plus side of that threshold. And there's still a lot of balance in this class, right? There's not a glaring hole. Sure, you want more bodies at certain positions, especially in the trenches, because look, it's Mel Tucker. It's what he wants to do. But there's nothing that says, man, they really need X. They really need one more X, and then it'll be considered a good class. I think the foundation is really strong, and it looks relatively stable at this point after that Wedden decommitment.
And I think the Wisconsin win, too, eased a lot of people. Just enough where, hey, maybe our fingers off the panic button. But then again, yeah, you do have that Wedden decommit. And I said, hey, this is one guy decommitting, unique situation, in my opinion, going to Auburn, a place that's not necessarily, stable football-wise. But yeah. So I said it's going to take at least 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 guys to decommit for me really to start worrying. But when is panic time then for Michigan State? Am I in the right saying that now's not the time, or should I be getting a little wound up over here on my end?
I think it's a little early for the panic button. Like you said, Wedden was a very unique situation. Kid I know very well. Look, he's a down home type of kid. And when he went back to Auburn, he loved that part of it. It wasn't about football, coaching, stability, all those things. He kind of liked the vibes in that part of SEC country. And he was really able to make that decision independent of who the head coach is going to be. And that's certainly a prospect that's in the minority. Most kids are a little bit more perceptional on what is going to happen, but it's not for everybody at that same token. So I do think he is a relatively unique case. Now, if like you said, 3, 4, 5 more kids start to fall off, especially because, look, this is this is a national footprint, right? A lot of Texas influence in this commitment group, a lot of down south influence overall with this group. If those kids start to pull off, then all of a sudden you do start to panic, because that natural base closer to home, one, isn't quite as strong as we've seen in years past, and two, most of those kids are off the board, right? Most of these kids have already come to a final college decision. So I think in that regard, it would be a little bit of panic time. But look, it's always good to remind folks that one game or a stretch of games during a college football season rarely affects recruiting in
Gotcha.
that same ratio where it hits fans, where it's like, man, we can't do anything right. And it's just a snowball effect. It really is never that simple from a college football recruiting standpoint. It is much more about the bigger picture. There's no hot seat talk for Mel Tucker or anything like that.
Right.
It would have to get almost to that point to create more movement. And then, of course, after that, in turn, more panic and worry about that commitment list.
See, there we go. That's the calm I needed. I'm sure that's a calm a lot of listeners needed too, because again, I'll reiterate it. Like the light at the end of this tunnel of a season that may or may not end in a bowl game is December 21st, right? Like National Signing Day. Like we just need that. So, okay. So we can hang on out for a little longer before we really start pulling our hair out. It's great to know, actually. Awesome. Perfect. And we're trying to relax too over this bye week here, as we build up to this Michigan game. But do you have any insight of what the Michigan State staff is up to? I know they've hit in the road in the last few days. And any specific names pop out to you for guys they're going to, or is it just kind of hitting all over the map here and just kind of a spray and pray for visits and whatnot?
I think it'll be pretty widespread, and I think it's a good time to double down on your verbal commitments, right? We just talked about how a lot of them are very far, away from that Midwestern footprint. So getting down to Alabama to see Stanton Ramil, getting down into Texas to see those 3 or 4 verbal commitments, I think that would be paramount for Michigan State and its coaching staff, re-recruiting those guys, because it's easy to kind of look beyond it. And I think the strategy of loading up with these summer official visits, which was really, again, that was the peak of this MSU class of 23. Loading up with those official visits means that a lot of those further away recruits aren't going to be able to get back up to East Lansing on their own dime during the season. So I think that is certainly area of one of the priority spectrum. And then after that, check on some guys that are still available, right? I mean, there's not a ton, but your Ashton Porters, your Samson Okunlolas are still there on the board. Reconvene with their head coaches, their schools, their coaching staffs, to at least get an updated evaluation. Then obviously you start planning for the real important part of this part of the process is those in-home visits at the end of the cycle. But certainly the bye week affords you more opportunity to maybe hit the jet for a little bit further away from East Lansing than you normally would, because you don't have to get back in time Saturday morning for a game.
Sure. Right on. And you know what? If anyone had a bet slip where you were going to be the first one to say Samson Okunlola's name, those were 50-1 odds. Usually that's me. That's just chomping at the bit to say that guy's name. But we'll get to him in a little bit, I'm sure. But also, too, in a hot second, want to talk about flips. Guys that could flip away from Michigan State. Guys that could, more fun for us, flip to Michigan State. But I just need to talk the people's ear off really quick about SweatBlock. That's right. This is an old friend. They are back, and thank God. Now, look, they want us to tell a story of when SweatBlock really benefited us. And hey, 'tis the season. It's the Michigan game coming up. How about last year? At the end of the first half, I'm sitting in this room by myself like a loser. But hey, you know what? Life was good. We were in shooting range of Michigan, but oh my God, something smells like a dump. Someone smells like a homeless person in here. And then, well, it was just me, because I was the only one there. And my goodness gracious, did I need some SweatBlock in my life? And hey, they were able to fix my problem. Shout out to SweatBlock. We're talking about the product that, says it does what it says. It blocks the sweat. You apply it beforehand. It lasts for up to a few days sometimes, really. SweatBlock was created by a doctor to help with his own excessive sweating. He must have been a Michigan State fan watching the Michigan game last year. It is a doctor-created and doctor-recommended product. It is simply the best. And to make it even better, we got a promo code so you can save 20% on your order at sweatblock.com. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try SweatBlock. Get it in time for next weekend's game, for crying out loud. Save 20% with promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. And as we welcome back the wonderful John Garcia Jr. of Sports Illustrated. Hey, thank you all for making Locked On Spartans your first listen every single day. John, let's do some cartwheels. Let's do some backflips. Let's talk flips. Let's talk about the fun portion of this conversation right now. Ashton Porter, okay, 4-star defensive lineman, was committed to Northwestern, and decommits not too long after visiting East Lansing. Scale of 1 to 10, chances that this works out for us with Ashton Porter coming to Michigan State. If you could just put a grade on that really quick.
I'd probably put a 7.5 to 8 on that thing right now. I do think you can't, right? I mean, we talked about it. Like, look, with Clay Wedden, he visits Auburn, decommits, and eventually flips to Auburn, right? So on the flip side of that, pun intended, Porter, visits MSU, decommits on the 16th from Northwestern, and now all of a sudden it's really a matter of when does he want to do this, right? The sooner the better from the Michigan State angle, right? Fresh off of that official visit, certainly presented him with a thrilling game and an atmosphere that is something that he'll call back to. They had a great group of recruits on campus, particularly on the defensive line. By Job, the class headliner on defense, was there, the SI 99 pass rusher. I mean, this was kind of an all hands on deck mid-season game to kind of counter what we talked about earlier, right? All those off-season official visits. So being able to wrangle up that many quality 2023 recruits, and obviously some 24s were on campus as well, I thought was a really big deal for MSU. So that kind of camaraderie with a lot of commits back home, I think rubs off on other prospects. And obviously the prowess of that side of the ball over the long haul at MSU is something that resonates. Brandon Jordan deserves a mention here. I think anytime you talk about a Texas defensive lineman, he's going to pop up, and there is some connection there to my understanding there as well. So again, the timeline suggests Michigan State is absolutely at the forefront of this recruitment, but it's a matter of how soon do you want to make that second decision? If it's a traditional flip, you decommit from one, you pick the other in relatively short order, or do you kind of say, hey, now I'm back on the market? Who jumps in? Do other schools start to circle the wagons and make some phone calls? I know Mississippi State, a couple others are interested in Porter. So I think with him back on the market, he'll get some clarity on some of the options that he does have. Maybe he takes another visit or two. But I think, again, right now where things stand fresh off of that trip, you got to feel really good about Sparty's chances.
And one of the worst things you could do in life in general is just put the cart in front of the horse, start counting the chickens before they even hatch. So with that said, let's just start doing that right now. Let's say Ashton Porter does commit to Michigan State. Now you got, another 4-star in Jalen Thompson, of course, the guy you just mentioned earlier, by Job, Andrew DePape right now, all verbal commits potentially if Porter hops on. Where does that rank just for position groups in the nation, I guess? Is that like a top 5 defensive line unit? Is it more of a top 10, top 15 defensive line unit? Or how would you grade that? I know it's an odd scale, but entertain me here. Yeah.
Look, we love position groups. It's something we value very high at SI when we rank recruiting classes. If you bring in a great group, especially at a premium spot like defensive line / pass rusher, you're going to be bumped up a couple of spots kind of,
Gotcha.
on the front end of any evaluation. So I think you get the nice combination. If Porter does jump in, you get the nice combination of pure juice on the outside with Job and Thompson, as you mentioned, some raw ability with some polish mixed in. I think Porter gives you flexibility positionally. I think he can easily bulk up and maybe rush on the inside. So now he's complementing some of those other pass rushers, right next to him when he lines up a pre-snap. So I do think this group hits another level if Porter is eventually brought on board, because now you're not only bringing the bulk and the quality at the pass rusher spot, you're bringing in some variance and some guys that can line up and present different problems to opposing offenses. And that's theoretically what you want. These programs go to these, some call it the NASCAR package, or they go to these crazy packages where all these pass rushers are on the field. Everyone's under 285 and you're just getting after the quarterback. Obviously with the Ohio States of the world in your own conference, you've got to be able to do something similar to slow down these passing attacks. So again, I think that adds even more value to getting a group like that to Michigan State. So I think again, if Porter's ready to do it soon, probably the best news possible for Mel Tucker and company.
I would welcome it personally. I don't know if Ashton Porter's listening right now, but hey, you got the green light from me at least. So that's one name
that's
that
a big
has.
Green light. That's a big green light.
It's Matt. Thank you.
Before Mel signs off, of course.
See, checks in the mail, John. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So that's one name that has one eyebrow arched. Is there any other names that are on flip watch to Michigan State? Obviously, he's probably the strongest candidate, but is there anyone that's maybe a little bit under him that we could be somewhat excited about or keeping an eye on?
Nothing glaring that's come across the desk. Again, that was kind of the build-up big visit weekend. So I think we're still figuring out some of the returns of those kids who were able to get up to East Lansing. But we'll see, right? Like you said, bye week and then some huge games still there on the schedule. So if they can get some more, return visits to campus, I think that will heat up closer to December, as you mentioned, in that early signing period. But certainly Porter is where that conversation begins right now.
Gotcha. And let's just go on to the other side of the coin here is guys flipping away from Michigan State here. Kedrick Reescano, running back out of Texas, having a sensational season down there at Texas as well. Yeah. Visits Ole Miss last week, and then, Ole Miss having an okay season, I would say, but nothing imminent there. Like, he didn't verbally decommit or anything, but still, with that said, is he a flip candidate? And if so, like, who else would also be on the radar to get a little nervous about here for this class?
Yeah, it would have been him and Wedden if you asked a couple weeks ago, and I think now it might just be him. Again, you worry about some of those kids outside of the footprint, and things do change relatively quickly when some of these other big dominoes come on the board. Again, programs double down on some guys that were maybe on that second tier on their board. So I don't want to say it's impossible because certainly, teenagers making decisions always makes things fluid. But I think he's really the primary guy to worry about. But it doesn't feel too imminent, right? He visited Ole Miss. He is not decommitted, which is a great sign. And there's talk that he could do a couple things that would probably shift the concern meter the other way. There's talk that he gets back up to East Lansing, although it's not scheduled. There's talk that other schools are involved. Not always the best news from the Michigan State angle, but if Ole Miss is such a kind of home run angle, right? Look, they're running the ball like crazy this year.
Yeah.
They got a freshman who's going to be a freshman All-American at running back. So there's a lot of easy optics with Ole Miss right now. You want to muddy that water a little bit. So if other schools start to get involved, and I think Oklahoma State's going to be that primary program to start getting in the mix, other schools start getting involved, it muddies the water a little bit. And we oftentimes see kids kind of go back home, but go back to square one, which right now for him is still Michigan State publicly and I believe privately at this point. Again, unless there's a decommitment or all of a sudden he's scheduling another visit to Ole Miss and stuff like that comes up, then I think the worry meter goes up just a little bit more. But these kids are going to do their due diligence, right? I mean, this is a long process. The season creates so much fluidity. We've already seen 5 coaching staffs, get canned and more are apparently on the way in short order in college football. So I think every recruit to a degree has got to do some due diligence, and that's going to include visits. It's just a part of the nature of recruiting in this day and age.
Long way to go till December 21st. No doubt about that. We're going to talk more specific names too. Yes, that's right. I'm going to hit you with some Samson Okunlola when we get to the other side of this quick break here. But first, hey, just got to talk to people's ear off about LinkedIn Jobs. We just talked about muddying the water. Do you know who makes the water clear is LinkedIn? That's right. They take care of you, whether you're looking for a job or whether you're looking to hire folks. Because these days, look, we all know this. Every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and, best of all, for free. Look, hey, you're going to create that free job post. So easy to do on LinkedIn Jobs. They make it so easy, even a guy like me can do it. It's fantastic. And then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Finish this year strong. Bulk up your team as we head into 2023 and trust LinkedIn Jobs because, hey, they're number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, you guessed it, they apply. And as we welcome back John Garcia Jr. of Sports Illustrated. Hey, thanks once again for sticking around here, and also making us your first listen and watch every single day. Rate, review, subscribe, comment below, do whatever makes you happy, because I'm about to do something that makes me happy. And that's Ask John Garcia Jr. about Samson Okunlola. John, do you have any good news for us, or what we got here?
Look,
so
he's
last guy.
Right. He's been the biggest name recruit that has been the most mysterious throughout this entire process, right? Took those three huge official visits in the offseason, right? Michigan State, Miami, Alabama. And it looked like at one point he was content, right? At the end of the summer, hey, I'm ready to make a decision. He said he thought he had enough to pull the trigger at the end of the summer, which is obviously most likely good news for one of those three schools.
Sure.
But then he said, well, I do still have a couple official visits in the bag. Let me take those in September. September came and went, no official visits. Well, it's hard to do that when your team plays their games on Saturdays over at Thayer Academy in Massachusetts. Really hard to get on an official visit if you're playing when the college teams are playing. So then the focus went to his bye weeks. Could he squeeze in a couple visits during his bye weeks? That is still potentially on the table, but as far as this evening, nothing has been publicly scheduled from an official visit perspective. So two schools of thought here. One, between those three official visits in the summer, Miami held the most buzz. I think that's pretty clear and kind of universally accepted at this point. So there's a sense of, if it was going to be Miami in June, July, or August, why hasn't it been Miami now that we're, closer to the end of the college football season? What more do you need to see from that school? So the second school of thought is, does that open the door for not only the other schools he visited, MSU and Alabama, but other schools still vying for those final official visits? Michigan, Florida, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon. The list really goes on and on there, which I think confirms how mysterious this thing has been, because there's not a whole lot of college sourcing telling us, hey, we're going to get this guy, right? So there's not a whole lot of that out in the air and the atmosphere right now. So I think it does tell you that there's a little bit of a reshuffling of the deck. There's still no visit timeline or decision timeline, but we assume those visits are going to come before a decision, especially for a kid who's a little bit more reserved, at least when it comes to recruiting in Samson Okunlola. So I do think this is almost a total reset of his recruitment at this stage of the game. I do believe he will take at least one of these official visits. I think Ohio State and Oregon might be in the best position to get him on campus should he take those trips. And then it's, everyone with a puncher's chance there at the end of the cycle, closer to National Signing Day. Again, you expect him to be well received during the evaluation period, especially when it gets to the in-home visit period. You would assume Mel Tucker and company are going to be out there in Massachusetts making their final pitch, and you let the chips fall where they may. But every school he's visited still has a puncher's chance at Okunlola. It's so much so that other schools are still trying to get involved here at the 11th hour.
I'm conflicted if I'm taking that as good news or bad news necessarily. I could talk myself into either side, really, but fascinating saga for this kid. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, the year's going to be 2026, and we'll be talking, and I'll still be asking you what he's going to be doing, because I don't even know if the decision will be made by then, but we'll see.
Probably declaring for the draft, I would imagine.
You'd hope so by then, but hey, you never know. Speaking of decisions that are way down the road here, enough of 2023 talk. Let's talk 2024, because apparently that's happening. Apparently that's already here, and here in a big way, because there was a highly rated commit by the name of David Stone, who visited not too long ago, posted on Instagram too that he was, quote, home in East Lansing. Okay. Tell me why I shouldn't be excited about that. Like, how is this going wrong? Like, this is great. This kid's like a 5-star kid. Like, this is awesome, right? I mean, this is this is pretty good.
I think if David was in the 23 class, he'd be arguably the number one interior guy. This is a ferocious, disruptive, modern interior guy, not the 330-pounder that is a gap occupier or anything like that. No, he is that new age 280-pounder who moves incredibly well and just is too quick for these big offensive linemen to deal with, yet he still brings so much power within his game. I think he's that good, and he's being recruited as such. He's an Oklahoma kid. He's from the state of Oklahoma, where there's long been this understanding that he's going to end up there. But look, we thought that of By Job as well, right? So obviously there is a push for MSU with kids in that part of the country. Now he's at IMG Academy, where he's still dominating, which I think says a lot about his ability. And now he's become well-traveled, as we often see with these IMG Academy kids. I think they've been to Auburn and Miami, obviously MSU this past weekend. But he's raving about that visit more so than what we're typically seeing. And he's a nice kid, says all the right things, already understands kind of the game of the recruiting media and that industry. But it was at a different level with Michigan State. And I think that's something that shouldn't be understated. We've already seen MSU pull well at IMG Academy with Jordan Hall. They're obviously tight. Hall lines up behind Stone on Friday nights. So that's something that could help with the MSU angle in that regard. And kind of like what we said with Okunlola, there's a sense that if Oklahoma's always been that school for David Stone, what is he waiting for, right? And he's an elite recruit. They would surely take him, especially with how the defense has looked there in Norman as soon as possible. They need that lightning rod to get their 24 class kick started, and they would certainly want him to be that guy as early as possible. But programs feel like he's still open. I think Miami just offered him recently. A couple other schools are still getting involved with David Stone, and typically that's a sign that they don't feel like this recruitment is totally over. So I think the timeliness of that, as well as that MSU visit, is something that could potentially speak volumes here. I think he's going to really assess who's in the mix here. Not saying Oklahoma's not going to be at the top and the favorite and all that stuff going into that part of the process. But I do think he's a little bit more open-minded than he was from the moment he got to IMG Academy, when it really was seemingly all about the Sooners. He's really kind of opened things up, as we see oftentimes with kids who go to IMG. It's very much a college atmosphere there, very business-like in how they navigate the recruiting process and make decisions. And I think he's seeing his 2023 classmates go through that with that mentality. And I think he's going to adopt a lot of it before he's all done with the process. And
so I think it's safe to say that he's like the name to know for Spartan fans for 2024 kids, at least. Is there a kid?
He's a top 5, top 10 overall kid. Sure. Again, I think he compares favorably to David Hicks to me in this class in terms of interior defensive lineman. He's a special recruit. I watched him play linebacker and safety at a camp. This is a different kind of kid. He was kind of messing around a little bit, but he made a couple plays and had like a pass breakup. I mean, he is a unique kid who literally gets after it wherever he can, and including, at some off-ball linebacker in a camp setting. He stole other guys' reps. He's a junkie. He is a junkie who absolutely loves it. And then you watch him on Friday nights and you can't miss him. And when you're talking about an IMG kid that you can't miss, it's really a feather in the cap for his ceiling and his floor at the same time.
That's nuts. Any like close second biggest name then for MSU fans? I know that, Vitor Belfort's kid, Davey Belfort, 4-star quarterback, was just on campus. That's just a fun one because, hey,
of course,
kid of a celebrity. That's fun. But like, are there any other like big names that, Michigan State should really know for 2024, or is it still like a little early before we could make a whole laundry list of?
Yeah, I mean, you always think of quarterbacks, certainly, especially with the big in-state quarterback already off the board for next year. I think that's a natural position to look to. And then you look at other in-state recruits as well, right? It's still very early in 24, but you still want to gather and impress on those visits, and with Stone and with Belfort too. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that, and Belfort's taken multiple visits to MSU. I think that's a big deal. Obviously, his family's a little more financially capable than some others, but still, that means he's got options. So to take multiple visits, I believe he's planning another one in short order. I think that says a lot about MSU's positioning there with him, especially because the schools down south starting to fill up, right? Florida's locked in on DJ Lagway. Georgia just got their 2024 quarterback verbally committed. So I do think there's some shuffling going on with the schools a little bit closer to home for the Miami native. So I think that could push him further outside of that southern footprint. And again, he really liked that impression there in East Lansing last week.
There we go. Look, always dropping by with good news. Look at you. John Garcia Jr. of Sports Illustrated. Just The man, the myth, the legend. Thanks a lot for your time, man, and your insight and everything that you offer here on Locked On Spartans, man. Always appreciate talking to you. I know our listeners absolutely love hearing from you. So thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate that.
You got it. You already know we will be back tomorrow, guys. Just enjoying this bye week here. But until then, hey, enjoy the rest of your week. Love you all. Go green. Let's go.